technically, small group homes may be legal, but referring to them is now a very gray area, especially if money is changing hands. So where we stand. Welcome to Aging in Style with Lori Williams, the podcast all about finding the silver lining no matter what life throws your way. I'm Lori Williams, an award-winning senior living expert, author, educator, and caregiver to my husband, Mark. Join me as I share insights, tips, and personal stories to help you navigate the world of senior housing, discover ways to pay for care, advocate for your loved ones, and most importantly, learn how to thrive, not just survive, as you age. Hi, welcome to Aging in Style. Today's episode is, I think, one of the most important ones I've recorded, and it's affecting Texas at this point. Not to say this won't go to other states, won't be adopting these same laws that have passed, but I want to talk about them now. And at this point, these new Texas laws have taken effect this year, some in June, and there's two more that are taking effect September 1st, 2025. And these laws directly affect residential care homes, sometimes called group homes, board and care homes, different things. In Texas or in this area, we tend to call them residential care homes, referral agencies like myself, and most importantly, our seniors. So let's jump into it and talk about why these laws were passed. So the truth is, these laws didn't just come out of thin air. They were written in response to some heartbreaking, just egregious tragedies that happened right here in the North Texas area. And I want to tell you right now that we have all of these stories, news articles, news stories, everything is linked in our show notes. So you can go back in there and read all of them. I'll also have links in there to the Senate bills. There's 4 that we will be talking about, and you can read them all in depth yourself. So one of the cases was in Grand Prairie, Texas. It involved a woman named Jacqueline Thomas. She had dementia, and she was placed in an unlicensed care home. And in that care home, she developed sores so severe that she could not lay on her back, and she later passed away. Another resident was hospitalized with bed sores that were down to the bone. And then another case that happened was in Arlington, Mansfield area. And both these areas are Dallas areas. And it was a woman who she ran multiple unlicensed care homes. Her name was Regla Sue Bequer. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, but she owned these unlicensed care homes in Arlington, Mansfield, and Grand Prairie, again, all areas of North Texas, Dallas area. Police have tied her to 20 plus deaths since 2022, and she's been charged with murder, abuse, and neglect. One resident's death was ruled homicide from drug toxicity, and there were others that were found in just absolutely horrific conditions. Again, links are in the show notes to all the news articles, so please go read them yourself. They're awful. They're truly terrible to read. But these cases revealed that there are cracks in oversight, that people are doing things they shouldn't do. And I do want to say, I think senior living, because of the baby boomers, and we hear the silver tsunami, all these different buzzwords and terms that people use, a lot of people have come into, because obviously there is a need to care for older adults. And I'm going to say, in my opinion, the vast majority come into this to do the right thing, whether they are having, they run a care home or they run a placement service such as mine or assisted living, whatever it may be. But there are always some bad players in everything. And so, unfortunately, it takes some awful cases that make the news that finally people go, oh gosh, we need to regulate this. This is a problem. And so that's what's happened. So these horrendous cases have led lawmakers in Texas to act. And so let's talk about the different laws that have come down. So House Bill 2510 goes into effect September 1st, 2025. And this one targets the operators, and they say assisted living facilities, but that entails residential care homes as well. Makes it a crime to operate a facility without a license or to provide personal assistance services without the proper HCSSA license. The penalty for breaking this law is a Class A misdemeanor for the first offense and a third-degree felony for repeat offenders. And again, this bill is going to be in the show notes. You can go read it. I'll have a link to it there. All right, the next one is Senate Bill 1137, which also goes into effect September 1st, 2025. This one states it regulates group home consultants. This is how they worded it. People paid to refer. Okay, that falls into what a placement service that I own. That falls into what we do. So we refer to an assisted living. You decide to go there, they pay as a fee if you move there. And I'll go into more detail about that in a minute. Okay, so it prohibits the referral to unlicensed homes unless, one, there's no licensed home available locally, or two, a family cannot afford licensed care. And it goes on to say, if referred, a consultant must disclose any complaints. It requires background checks for the group home for their staff members. And then it's a penalty for breaking this law. It's a Class B misdemeanor. It gets a little vague. And so as I'm going to go through the rest of these, and then I'm going to kind of recap kind of what I took from it and just kind of express what I feel is a bit of a gray area. Okay, the next one is Senate Bill 1383, which went into effect June 20th, 2025. This one, we're going to link, I did a podcast episode in depth on this one because I do think all this is good. This one regulates placement agencies, referral services, like the one I own. So what it said, it required agencies must now all carry liability insurance, run background checks on all their employees, audit all facilities for valid licenses, and that would be, let me just be clear on this, assisted living, memory care, and residential care homes. They all require that they be licensed because they are providing care. So senior apartments and independent living do not have to be licensed because they are not providing care. And disclose fees, conflicts of interest, and right to cancel. So let me break those down. In Senate Bill 1383, placement agencies are required to disclose fees to their clients. So we've always done that. It is now in writing. We're very sure everyone sees it. And basically what it states is, if we refer, this is how we work, how all placement services work. We have contracts with all the different types of communities. If you come to me, you're looking for an assisted living, we refer you out to 2 or 3 that we think will fit. You choose one. You decide to move to that one, you move in, then the community pays us a fee. It's like a finder's fee kind of thing, or apartment locator or whatever. I'm just kind of trying to break it down so it's understandable. Conflicts of interest. So like if I owned an assisted resort, like a part owner in assisted living, I could not refer you to that. That's a conflict of interest. And then right to cancel is that at any time you can say, Lori, I don't want to work with you. I want to go work with my friend Joe over here who has a placement service. And that's honored. You're not stuck having to stay with me. Although why wouldn't you want to stay with me? Just kidding. This is such heavy stuff, y'all. I've got to make a little joke. Okay, so that's, again, go back and listen. I broke the whole thing down back when it passed in June. Also, in Senate Bill 1383, it prohibits, now here's where we're going to get into the care home stuff. So it prohibits referrals to unlicensed homes unless exempt under Texas law, which means in Texas, according to the law, if you have less than 3 residents, then you're legal, you're fine. This was June 20th, 2025, but remember up here, passing September 1st, it says the only way you can refer to an unlicensed home is if there's no licensed homes available locally or a family cannot afford licensed care. So that's where we're starting to get a little gray area there. Penalty for Senate Bill 1383, civil and regulatory enforcement. Okay, the last one that goes into effect September 1st, 2025, it's Senate Bill 1777. It applies to healthcare providers, employees, and contractors. And this is where we get into that real gray area because that could include referral agencies if you say contractors. Okay, it says it prohibits accepting any payment for referrals to unlicensed homes. No exemptions listed, even the small homes, the less than 3. And the penalty for this, for receiving payment for referring to an unlicensed care home, is a Class B misdemeanor, up to 180 days in jail and a $2,000 fine. Again, the bill is going to be in the show notes, the link to it. Go read it yourself. Okay, here is where the gray area, for me, really comes into play. Texas law still says small homes with 3 or fewer residents are exempt from licensing. Senate Bill 1383 recognizes that exemption, but it allows referrals if the home is legally compliant. Remember, 3 or less. Senate Bill 1777, that's the one that goes into effect September 1st, does not recognize that exemption, and it criminalizes referral for pay to any unlicensed home. That's that 180 days in jail and a $2,000 fine. So technically, small group homes may be legal, but referring to them is now a very gray area, especially if money is changing hands. So where we stand at Lori Williams Senior Services, which is the name of my placement service, we've always verified licensing before referring families anywhere. We've always been in compliance with Senate Bill 1383, which is we carry liability insurance. We've always operated transparently with our families and communities. But with these new laws, I have made the decision that we will not refer to unlicensed homes of any size, even, 3 or less is where I'm going here. Even though that is still legal, we will not be referring to the unlicensed care homes after carefully reading each of these bills. It's just not worth risking the safety of any of the families that we work with or crossing legal lines that are unclear. So closing thoughts for families. I think it's really important to just always ask when you are looking at a care home, working with a placement service. With any of these, you need to ask, is this home licensed by the state of Texas? The assisted livings, like the big assisted livings, memory cares, they all have to be licensed, and you can always check their licensure and see if they're in compliance with everything, but they have to be. We're talking more, this is really about the smaller care homes. Confirm with Texas Health and Human Services if you're unsure, and ask your placement service, if you're working with one, if they're insured, compliant, and following these laws. Texas is raising the bar, and I think we're going to be seeing this in other states as well. It's been a little confusing trying to read through and just make sure we are doing everything and are in compliance, but I think it's well worth it. I think our seniors deserve the best. We owe it to them that there are no other cases coming out where it's in the news, something horrendous like what happened to Jacqueline Thomas or what happened at the Love and Caring for People care homes. That should not be happening. That is just disgusting and wrong on so many levels. So, I think it's all good stuff that this is happening, but everyone needs to be aware of what the laws are and make sure that they are working with placement services and care homes that are following all of these laws. So that's what I have for you today. I have got lots and lots of reading for you. If you want to click in the show notes, we have lots of links to the articles, to the news stories, to the Senate bills. So happy reading. But I think it's very important stuff. And please do share this with your friends and families and neighbors, especially if you're here in the Texas area. I think everyone needs to be aware of this. All right. Thanks for tuning in today, and I'll be back with you next week for another show, and hopefully we'll have a not so heavy topic for you. All right, bye-bye.